In The Wonderful and Terrifying Implications of Computers That Can Learn by Jeremy Howard, he explains that computers are now capable of actually reading, writing, learning, and performing regular everyday tasks using a deep learning algorithm. Jeremy Howard is an Australian data scientist. He is founder of Fast.ai, an institute to help spread the awareness of deep learning, and he is also the former CEO of Endlytic, an advanced machine learning company. Jeremy Howard starts off his TED Talk by introducing this technology that is actually quite old. Computers have been being taught how to do things for decades, and he starts with, I believe, the first example in history, and that is in 1962. A computer was actually taught how to play checkers and beat the Connecticut champion in a match of checkers. So this has been going on for a very long time. Computers have been taught how to do things before, but now they have better implications. He goes on to say that the algorithms used today to show you ads is a form of machine learning. So, somebody's not watching your computer screen. There's nothing going on like that. A computer is being fed your data, and it knows what you're searching for, what you're looking for, sort of what you're interested in, and the computer sort of gets to know your computer, and then it will show you ads based on that. That's why you see a lot of times if you are talking about dog food or dog toys with somebody in the room, it is likely that you'll see an ad for dog toys or food because you were talking about that. It was picked up by your microphone, and the computer can actually listen and hear for those types of things. I've gotten this many times on my phone, and it's rarely a coincidence. These computers are taught to learn this so that they can give you the correct ads. That way you're more enticed to buy things. Machine learning is learning from data. This is not written by hand. So if these programs were written by hand, it would take centuries for this to be finished. These simple programs are written, and the computer is picking and choosing, and it is learning from the data it's given, and it's constantly adapting to the data that it learns from, and then it can refine the algorithm more and more as it learns more. Say, for example, if it's looking for different car parts, and you tell it what kind of car part you're looking for, and then you give it an example, it can pick that type of car part from millions of pictures as shown in the TED Talk. Next, he goes on to say that deep learning is used to gather data and learn things we don't even know. So the computer can actually do things that you're not even familiar with. For example, in the video, he uses an example that a bunch of kids got together and made an algorithm so that it could identify, I believe it was cancer cells, and they didn't have any biological or medical background. So they just told the computer what to look for, how to do it, and they didn't even have any background. So this is a pretty powerful thing to be teaching computers. Next, he goes on to say that through deep learning, computers can learn just like us. Like I said before, it can adapt to the data just like a human being. If it is told what the color blue is multiple times as a child, it's going to eventually learn what the color blue is. Same exact thing with computers. He goes on to say that machines are now actually better than us. Obviously, they don't have the same type of cognitive thinking that we do, and it doesn't have the same human emotion and empathy that we have. But they are better at learning, they are faster at learning, and they can learn much more than we can. Next, he says that computers can now detect emotion in sentences through deep learning. So like I said just before in the last part, computers don't have that same empathy that we have towards other humans. It doesn't show emotion, but it can pick up emotion in sentences. So if you give it a sentence that is criticizing a movie with a joke inside of it, the computer will be able to detect that this is both negative and humor. An example was given in this TED Talk that goes through exactly how it's picking up on these words. Computers can understand text and match them with images. So like I mentioned before, he gives an example of the algorithm trying to detect different car parts, the car front, the car back, and as long as you give the computer something to work with and a few hints, it will be able to identify millions of pictures in just a few seconds. One of the best implications that Jeremy Howard mentions in this TED Talk is that these computers are now capable and viable in the medical field. They can look for cancer cells, they can look for all sorts of stuff, different types of tissue, and let the doctors know what the problem is. And one example that he gave is that this is going to be really good because it's not going to put people out of a job, but rather it's going to allow the doctors to stick to what they do best, which is operating and fixing the problem. And we now have these computers that can very accurately identify the problem. To go along with that, he mentions that this could fix the lack of medical experts in the world, because we can train these computers in much, much less time than it takes to train a human, just because of how computers work and the algorithms that they can use to identify these different medical issues. Now we are free to move on to the problems that Jeremy Howard dives into in this TED Talk. Now that we are through all of the good implications, he mentions first that it can possibly destroy jobs that the learning computer will replace. Like I said before, in that example, it wasn't going to replace the doctor. It's just good at identifying things. But there are many jobs in which the computer will replace, such as pretty much an accountant, any sort of typing on the computer, any sort of text analysis. The computer will definitely 100% be able to learn how to do those things and make those jobs completely obsolete. The next thing is that computers are growing too smart for our own good. He shows a graph in the TED Talk in which the computers are going to constantly get smarter and smarter and smarter, even smarter than us. The reason being is that we give it an algorithm and the computer can constantly learn at insanely fast speeds. So it's going to, let's say, identify these different cancer cells, and it's going to get better and better every time it tries. Whenever it fails and we let it know it fails, so the computer will be ridiculously fast and good at identifying these cancer cells or car parts and eventually replace many jobs. So that's pretty much it for this TED Talk. There wasn't too many horrible problems, except for the fact that they definitely can replace millions of jobs just because these computers are capable of reading, writing, identifying images, and much more. So people who have those types of jobs may be completely obsolete here in the next few years, only because people are constantly working at making these algorithms better and trying to make these computers absolutely perfect at what they do. So it's definitely got really good implications, but that doesn't always mean good for us. All right, so my questions for this TED Talk is, what are the possible solutions to have people keep their jobs while implementing this technology? The next question is, what resources are required to produce these type of deep learning algorithms? And then the last question is, how do you think the general public would react if computers were the thing identifying their medical problems? So I think that we had a discussion about this already, and many people agreed that people would freak out if machines were operating on them. This is one step away. If we are putting machines into the medical field and having them identify cancer cells just like a regular doctor would, how would these people react? Because I think once that starts, people will start to get the idea that computers and robots will definitely be smart enough one day to operate. I don't really have an issue with that, but I think that is a very important question to be asked. But that is pretty much it for this TED Talk. I will leave all of the links in the description for all of the websites that I used and the original video. Thank you for watching.